The secrets kept in Hugh Hefner's basement endured after his death in 2017. Hidden cameras have been filming people since the late 1970s. According to former girlfriends, Hefner used the abundance of adult content he kept in the basement to manipulate others. Files from FBI investigations dating back decades were in one box. People who discovered they had been taped filed over 10 lawsuits by 2022. The basement served as more than just a hiding place. The hidden crimes would always be a source of fear for Hollywood. He was born in Chicago, Illinois, and his birthday is April 9, 1926. His parents were very strict about him not hugging, watching movies, or engaging in any sexual activity. He was altered in ways no one could have predicted by that chilly, rule-filled home. When he was younger, he would covertly sketch people who weren't completely clothed. He was already struggling against the barriers they had erected around him at that age. He later claimed that he wanted to be emotionally and physically free because of his family's coldness. That early restraint seemed to be the foundation of his entire life. Despite having an IQ of 152, he struggled academically. Although he struggled in class, he excelled in his own imagination. When he was in Sir Elementary, he started creating comic books. He was the protagonist and embarked on perilous adventures in them. When he was 16, a girl named Betty broke his heart. The pain caused him to change every aspect of himself. He started writing a comic about his school life called School Days and changed his attire. Hef was his name. It was one of the first times he used his rage to create art, and it happened in 1942. At Steinmetz High School, he persisted in his pursuit of goals. In 1943, he started contributing to the Steinmetz Trumpet, the school newspaper. In addition to being a writer and cartoonist, he combined words and images to make people laugh and hone his voice. He joined the student council, sang in the school band, and always did something interesting. Betty broke his heart, and he never fully recovered. He pushed himself further as a result. He continued to develop his comic book series, immersing himself in wild and thrilling tales. People continued to talk about him even after he finished in early 1944. After many years, he began providing the school newspaper with approximately $7,500 annually so that they could print in color in 2010. Even at 84, he could still vividly recall that moment. Furthermore, he intervened once more to support student voices during a censorship dispute in 2016. In June 1944, Heller enlisted in the Army. He received a badge for being a proficient marksman when he practiced with his M1 at Fort Hood in Texas, but he never served on the front lines. He got a desk job in Maryland because of his typing prowess. It was fortunate, he said. Instead of fighting overseas, he made cartoons for military newsletters and chased women around Washington, D.C. He claimed that the peaceful years he spent serving as a soldier until 1946 helped him maintain his creative spark. He believed that if he had witnessed combat, Playboy might not have occurred. After leaving the Army in 1946, he enrolled at the University of Illinois. In addition to taking art and creative writing classes, he majored in psychology. He worked so hard that everything was finished in just 2.5 years. When he was hired as editor of the college humor magazine Shaft, he had the opportunity to create a brand new section called Co-Ed of the Month. Many were surprised, but it was a sneak peek at what he would eventually create. He briefly attended Northwestern for graduate school in 1949, but left after penning a paper criticizing American sex laws. He did not care to abide by the rules. He also spent the summer of that year studying at the Chicago Art Institute, which combined his passion for words and art. In 1952, Hefner earned $60 per week working for Esquire magazine. He quit after they rejected his request for a modest raise of about $5. He was sick of it and took a bold action. He used his furniture as collateral and received about $600. He received an additional $8,000 from 40 backers, including $1,000 from his mother, who loved him enough to lend a hand even though she didn't believe in the project. He was forced to rename the magazine from Stag Party to something else after receiving threats of legal action. Playboy was his creation. In his tiny Hyde Park kitchen, he assembled the first issue. The first Game Boy magazine was published in December 1953. He wasn't sure if there would be a second problem, so he didn't even put a date on his cover. He purchased nude photos of Marilyn Monroe for just $500. Long before she rose to fame, in 1949 they were taken. Monroe and Hefner never met or collaborated. However, the image of her lying on red satin with her lips slightly parted and her eyes closed went viral. At 50 cents each, almost 54,000 prints were sold. Hefner placed articles about sports, jazz, and even a Sherlock Holmes tale beside the image. The magazine was beneficial for more than just the eyes, he meant. The first copies can now sell for more than 100,000 naira. The first column was written by Hefner. He claimed that men would enjoy the magazine's fiction, fashion, music, and women. Many famous authors soon followed suit. A story was published by Ray Bradbury. When Hefner published Charles Beaumont's story about a world in which straight people were treated poorly, it shocked people and completely flipped the script on real-life oppression. The story infuriated people, but Hefner stood by it. In the same year, he also brought on Dick Gregory. Gregory had witnessed a black performer in Chicago. Craig's first big break came. The magazine was selling 100,000 copies a month by that point. But Hefner's bout was just getting underway. Because they believed Playboy was inappropriate, the USPS attempted to ban him. He retaliated and prevailed. After that victory, he was able to print in full color and expand rapidly. Eventually, well-known individuals like Vladimir Nabokov and John Lennon joined in. When he was arrested in 1963 for taking photos of Jane Mansfield, the judges were unable to reach a decision. In 1959, he also started a television program called Playboy's Penthouse. Stars like Ella Fitzgerald and Sammy Davis Jr. were at what appeared to be a party at his apartment. By featuring black and white guests together on screen at a time when many Southern stations wouldn't, the show broke down barriers between races. In 1960, Hoff established the first Playboy Club in Chicago. There were a lot of people there, and entry required a keyholder membership. They wore satin garments with tails and bunny ears. They were punished behind the scenes if they didn't adhere to stringent weight and appearance regulations. By 1961, more than 132,000 people had visited the club in just 3 months. Ultimately, there were 40 clubs spread across 40 nations, including Jamaica and London. In 1962, Hefner started penning a lengthy series of articles. They are referred to as the Playboy philosophy. It was roughly 250,000 words long and continued until 1965. He discussed free speech in addition to sex rules. While some praised him as a bold thinker, others, particularly feminist organizations, claimed he was merely using women as a cover for his exploitative tactics. Protests took place. Women who had previously worked for him later claimed that they were subject to rigid, frequently demeaning rules. So-called secret abuse was already being exposed. Playboy was valued at approximately $120 million when it went public in 1964. Most of it was still under Hefner's control. For about $370,000, he purchased a massive 70-room home in Chicago in December 1959. It featured hidden caverns, a pool with a waterfall that led into it, and rooms filled with lights and mirrors. He moved in after their breakup and hosted extravagant parties for hundreds of guests. FBI officers stood guard as obscenity investigations continued. Women eventually came forward to report that they had been drugged, forced to perform tasks, and even filmed without their consent. Some of these claims were still being made in movies as late as 2022. Hefner founded Playboy Productions in 1968, marking the beginning of his filmmaking career. One of the first major ones was Macbeth, directed by Romeo Polanski in 1971. Polanski had recently lost his wife, Sharon Tate, so it received a lot of attention. The film was dark and dangerous. The studio produced over 20 films, including Saint Jack in 1979. Behind the scenes, however, things were not going well. Even though the name Playboy was everywhere, bad news kept coming out. In 1949, Hugh Hefner wed Millie Williams. They became friends after meeting at Northwestern University. He believed she was the one, so he had saved himself for her. However, Millie told him she had been having an affair while he was serving in the army. At the time, he was broken. It was the worst thing that had ever happened to him, he said in the end. Although she felt guilty for allowing him to have affairs, it was detrimental to their marriage. In 1959, 10 years later, they divorced. David was born in 1955 and Christy in 1952. Hugh changed following the breakup. He dated multiple women while leading a wild life at the Chicago Playboy mansion. He even claimed to have had over 1,000 sexual encounters. Their children first adopted Millie's new husband Gunn as their last name before reverting to Hefner. This marked the beginning of the lifestyle that would bring him fame. A world of young women, fancy parties, and dreams. Things changed once more in 1968 when he met Barbie Benton. When she appeared on his television program, Playboy After Dark, she was just 18 years old. She moved in with them after their love blossomed. In 1971, she persuaded him to spend slightly more than $1 million on a large home in Holby Hills. In the same year, he converted the house into the new Playboy Mansion. Nearly every night there were wild parties, a zoo, waterfalls, a cave, and secret rooms. Many celebrities, including Warren Beatty and Mick Jagger, attended. Benton also contributed to some of the house's design. His affairs led to their breakup, although they remained together until 1976. Ultimately, she declared those to be the most memorable years of her life. Then, in 1985, Hefner suffered a severe stroke. His age was 58. For a while, he was largely disabled and had to reevaluate his life. 4 years later, in 1989, he remarried. This time, it was to his 26-year-old playmate, Kimberly Conrad, whom he had met at a photo shoot in 1987. She received the 1989 Playmate of the Year award. 1990 and 1991 saw the birth of their 2 children. Cooper was born in 1991, and Marston in 1990. To spend more time with his family, he temporarily slowed down, but by 1998, they were no longer living together. Like before, he resumed dating a large number of people. In 2010, Kimberly filed for divorce after more than a decade of living apart. Hefner claimed that his marriage helped him cope with the anxiety his stroke had brought on. They remained legally married for the benefit of the children, and she even moved in next door. In 2012, he got married one final time. On the final night of the year, he wed Crystal Harris. She was 26 and he was 86 years old. She immediately moved in after they met at a Halloween party in 2008. However, she described the reality of life with Hefner in her 2024 book. She claimed to feel dominated and imprisoned. She was subject to regulations regarding her appearance, what she wore, and even the type of nail polish she applied. She couldn't put on weight, and if her roots were visible, she had to lighten her hair fast. Every night, she also had to get home by a specific time. After 2014, closeness became robotic and difficult to find, she said. The house was filled with mold, birds, and trash that he refused to dispose of. 2011 saw their first breakup, but they later reconciled. But when he passed away, she received nothing. A darker side of Hefner, one that was more about power than love, was revealed by his marriage. A horrible incident rocked Playboy's world in 1975. Hefner employee Bobby Arstein committed suicide in a hotel in Chicago. She was only 34. At the time, the government was investigating drug use in the Playboy empire. Bobby was sentenced to 15 years in prison for his involvement in the cocaine trafficking scheme. The charges, Hefner believed, were an attempt to turn her against him. He claimed it was a witch hunt. The media was awash with tales of drug use and wild parties at the Playboy mansions. Another woman, Adrienne Pollock, had passed away in 1973 from excessive medication use. Hefner's situation was deteriorating at the time. Then came an even worse story in 1980. Her envious husband killed Dorothy Stratton. She had recently won the title of Playmate of the Year. Her age was only 20. Hefner was held accountable for endangering her. After she passed away, he released nude photos of her without her relatives' consent. Her mother and sister filed a lawsuit. She had been mistreated at the house, according to former employees. In a later book, her boyfriend Peter Bogdanovich accused Hefner and the Playboy Society of being responsible for everything. Everybody could see the fiction's flaws. In the 1980s, more alarming allegations surfaced. A number of women reported that Hefner had mistreated them at home. A few were too young. A lot of drugs were involved. His former girlfriend Crystal claimed that after he passed away, she disposed of the numerous sexy photos he had of her. Hefner allegedly assaulted a girl while she slept, according to one of his valets. He left one of the twin sisters pregnant after they claimed he wouldn't protect them. The house used to be considered elegant, but now it appeared to be a painful place. Hefner's personal physician, Mark Saganor, played a peculiar and personal role in his life. The so-called shadow mansions that Saganor operated in the 1970s and 1980s. They brought in women and promised them fame. After that, they were utilized for hookups and parties. Saginor's daughter later described it as dark and frightening. Some believe that Hefner and the physician were more than just companions. According to some, those homes were even worse for abusing people and producing illegal films. When police investigated drugs in the 1980s, everything became clear. It all began in 1971 when Hefner purchased the Playboy mansion. He turned the 1927 Gothic-style home into a symbol of his dreams. There were secret passageways, a zoo, and a cave with waterfalls and hot tubs. By the 1980s, it had a tanning bed gym, but after decades of parties, the house collapsed. He sold it for $100 million to a neighbor in 2016. He lived there until his death in 2017, according to the neighbor's decision. The busiest month for Playboy magazine was November 1972, when over 7 million copies were sold. In 1976, Jimmy Carter, then a presidential candidate, admitted to cheating on his wife in a startling interview. His campaign nearly suffered, but more magazines sold as a result. Playboy's fame extended beyond its images. It also featured interviews with well-known figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lennon. And Hefner did not limit himself to magazine publishing. In 1971, he founded Playboy Records. Barbie Benton produced music under the label. The song Show and Tell was a huge hit in 1974. In 1981, he established a casino in Atlantic City. It made a lot of money, but by 1984, it had to close, because Hefner's previous bribery charges prevented him from having a betting license. Among the numerous issues facing the brand was the casino's collapse. Playboy's paper sales were declining by the 1990s, but when his daughter Christy took over, they moved online. It was Playboy in 1994, opened. In 1995, they started the Playboy Cyber Club, which featured movies and chat rooms. In 2011, they even defied Apple's regulations by releasing an entire library on the iPad. Christie helped the company survive a period of change by recognizing early on the potential of the internet. Christie was officially appointed CEO in 1988. Hefner stepped back and concentrated on creating Art, a program known as The Girls Next Door, debuted in 2005. It depicted what life was like with his girlfriends Bridget, Holly, and Kendra in the house. The 6-year run of the show made Hefner a TV star once more. It wasn't what it seemed to many of the women who worked in the background. In March 1985, Hugh Hefner suffered a minor stroke that altered the course of his life. He claimed that the stress was brought on by a book that was published about his friend Dorothy Stratton's murder. Following the stroke, Hefner sold Big Bunny, his famous private aircraft. In 1969, he purchased it for $5 million. It was no ordinary plane. It featured a movie theater, a disco, and sleeping quarters for 16 people. On a black background, the Playboy Bunny logo was illuminated by a spotlight. It demonstrated the craziness of his life. However, he made an effort to lead a healthier life after the stroke. He declared he was going to take it easy and gave up smoking. However, that was not the reality. Even in his 80s, he continued to throw wild parties. He once claimed that taking Viagra had changed his life by enabling him to continue having affairs with multiple women. Trying to maintain good health while continuing to live as if nothing had changed was strange. At the same time, Playboy's empire was collapsing. The casinos in the United States, and the USK were shutting down, and funds were rapidly running out. Rumors that Hefner was deteriorating began to circulate in June 2016. He was behaving like he had dementia, according to some. He sold the Playboy mansion for about $100 million that same year. Darren Metropolis, a 32-year-old man whose father owned Hostess Brands, was the buyer. Playboy had purchased the mansion in 1971 for a mere $1 million. With a zoo license, a game room, and the renowned grotto, it was enormous, spanning more than 22,000 square feet. However, by 2016, it was in serious need of repair and was collapsing. The fact that Hefner was allowed to remain there for the remainder of his life was the most startling aspect of the agreement. Playboy leased it back for about $1 million a year. People began to question whether he was really too weak to leave. After Hefner passed away, Metropolis intended to merge the two houses into a single enormous property. He had previously paid about $18 million for the house next door in 2009. This peculiar configuration showed the reality. The man who had once controlled parties was now hardly ever seen outside of his bedroom as Hefner's empire came crashing down. Hugh Hefner passed away on September 27, 2017, at the age of 91. A severe E had been plaguing him, septicemia from an E. coli infection. In the company of his family, he died at the Playboy mansion. However, many were taken aback by the location of his 1992 burial. He had purchased the crypt drawer next to Marilyn Monroe for about $75,000. In 1953, she was featured naked on the cover of Playboy's debut magazine issue. Despite never having met her in person, Hefner was completely enamored with her. Monroe passed away in 1962. and fans frequently left lipstick stains on her grave. Hefner's decision to be buried next to her alarmed some, who claimed that he was objectifying her even after he passed away. He was buried in a closed casket and had a private funeral. Even though she never consented, it seemed as though he was attempting to permanently link his legacy to the woman who had assisted in the founding of his approximately $200 million empire. A documentary series called Secrets of Playboy debuted in January 2022 and caused yet another upheaval. It came to light that Hefner might have fabricated illnesses in order to manipulate women. From 2012 until his passing in 2017, he was married to Crystal Harris, his third wife. She claimed in her 2024 memoir that Hefner made up a story about having hearing loss and back pain in order to keep her from leaving him alone. She claimed that he forced her to adhere to stringent guidelines, such as bleaching her hair and only using light-colored nail polish. She was also battling mold poisoning and Lyme disease at the same time. She was supported by other women who claimed that Hefner controlled them by instilling guilt in them. These tales revealed a far more sinister side to the man who was once only seen as a playboy who enjoyed parties. Even after his passing, he was still viewed as a manipulator who took advantage of illness rather than as a humorous figure. The Hugh M. Hefner Foundation was established by Hugh Hefner back in 2010. He donated millions to sex education, free speech, and film protection. He provided 20 years of funding for the University of Southern California's film censorship research. Each year, the fund awarded grants to individuals defending First Amendment rights. Hefner also contributed to research on Lyme disease by 2017, which was related to Crystal's own condition. This was interpreted by some as an effort to alter the way that people remembered him. Despite having led a life filled with parties, scandal, and power for decades, his contributions revealed a different picture. Perhaps he wanted history to remember him favorably. There were secrets within the Playboy mansion itself that extended well beyond parties. Arthur R. Kelly had constructed the home in 1927 in the Gothic Tudor style. In order to conceal alcohol during Prohibition, the basement had a hidden wine cellar behind walls. Hefner discovered it after paying $1 for the mansion in 1971, $5 million. He later stored classified images and videos from the mansion's security cameras there. In a 2011 Vanity Fair interview, he even boasted about it. Some people pondered what else might be hidden beneath the house because of the mystery created by the stone tunnels and trapdoors. Hefner constructed service rooms and tunnels beneath the house in the 1970s. These tunnels connected the game house and bathhouse to the main house. This allowed employees to move around during wild parties without being noticed. The size of these subterranean locations was demonstrated by ancient Polaroids. According to a former employee, the tunnels once led to the residences of well-known celebrities like Jack Nicholson and Warren Beatty, despite the fact that they closed in 1989. Tube plans indicated that they could reach the Los Angeles Country Club. There was more to the Playboy mansion than just fun. Everything was hidden in this secret world, including cameras and well-known individuals. Hefner constructed a gym underneath the restroom in 1978. Along with the best tools, it featured saunas, tanning beds, and even stone tubs. Although he claimed it was for his girlfriend Carrie Lee, there were hidden cameras there, and staff later claimed they were used to record sexual encounters without consent. Valet Stefan Tettenbaum discussed pig nights, where sex workers were filmed while Hefner smoked and laughed in front of large screens. In 2022, Variety reported that these recordings resulted in cases. The gym was now a part of a much darker scene rather than a place to work out. The basement was enlarged once more in the 1980s. Vaults that were difficult to locate held plans for secret rooms designed for drug use and sex, as well as videos. According to some, Hefner threatened guests and celebrities with these tapes. A video clerk later reported that there were over 1,000 tapes in the vaults. Renovations included private bedrooms designed for sex parties, hidden mirrors, and carved wood. The glitzy exterior of Hefner's world belied its terrifying interior secrets. And these bunkers were like time capsules of that world. Even the 1927 constructed stone caverns were utilized as hiding spots. They appeared to have been constructed in the Gothic Revival style due to their pointed domes and sturdy stone walls. They contained more of Hefner's films, including some of the scariest ones shot on pig nights. According to one employee, climate-controlled safes contained over 100 recordings of well-known individuals. The oldest tapes date back to the late 1970s. Old and new forms of darkness were locked up in the basements until long after Hefner had left. More was revealed in the 2022 documentary Secrets of Playboy. According to the report, Hefner secretly recorded women at parties using hidden cameras. According to his ex-girlfriend, Sandra Theodore, he used the tapes to manipulate others. She claimed that he kept a mountain of revenge porn in the basement and discussed having tapes on everyone. Some who were aware of the situation claimed that Hefner was watching everything live and that cameras were installed in the bedrooms. These facts demonstrated that he was a man who exploited his position of authority to trap people rather than a symbol of unrestricted love. Hefner assisted in operating covert spy houses throughout Los Angeles in the 1980s, according to the same program. These homes were frequented by clubs, drugs, and women who didn't fall into the Playboy stereotype. Mark Saganor is a physician who goes by doctor. According to reports, Feelgood has assisted up to 20 women each week with trafficking under the pretense of photo shoots. A woman was allegedly given drugs in 1985 before being brought back to the main house for intercourse. Logs in the basement were coded with secret codes to track who went where. These allegations gave the impression that the abuse was occurring in multiple homes. It was a strategy. A lot of drugs, including Quaaludes, were also stored in the basement, according to several women. According to Theodore Sandre, employees distributed up to 500 pills from drawers prior to parties. In 1976, a woman was drugged, beaten, and rendered unconscious for hours in the basement. According to former helpers, pills were widely used between 1975 and 1980. One of her girlfriends claimed that she found out the following morning that she had been given a drug in her wine in 1978. Even old FBI files on Hefner were hidden away in the house. After his death in 2017, a 58-page file was discovered in the basement. It revealed that Hefner had been the target of spies in the late 1950s and early 1960s. People thought that by sharing explicit photos of Jane Mansfield online, Playboy was breaking the law. In 1963, Hefner was apprehended and charged, but he prevailed in court. Jay even received notes. Bugging was requested by Edgar Hoover. Hefner had been in trouble from the beginning, as these documents demonstrated. When he passed away, things continued. An old friend, Susie Krabisher, filed a lawsuit against his office in 2018. She claimed that the entire incident was on one of the tapes in the basement and that she had been raped in 1980. She wasn't alone. There were over 10 cases by 2022. Together, the 5 women were suing for $10 million. In boxes in the basement were over 1,000 hours of video. Some tapes contained scenes from as early as 1979. A large number of these cases were resolved out of court.